Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. Follow us on Facebook. Very simple, facebook.com, This Week in America. Like us on Facebook. Again, facebook.com, This Week in America. As mentioned on the program today is Patti Zona. She's the author of the new book, The Value of a Homemaker. She thought she had it all, and then suddenly everything changed. She shares her shocking personal story to inspire other homemakers, and she's with us on This Week in America. Patti, welcome to the program. Pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
I mentioned that this is, you did have it all, and let's go back to the beginning. You were married at a young age, but you decided that you were young, in love, and you were going to beat the odds. Talk about the marriage, and then we'll go up to the point when you suddenly started to realize that things are changing. They're not what they once were.
Well, first of all, my dreams were not to be married, and one of these days I would have been married, but I did have my own dreams of what I wanted to do. But it was my birthday, and it was the first time, and my husband was in college, and he was saying that, he would die if we didn't. And we did. We had that encounter, and I got pregnant on my birthday. And actually, I had our first son on my husband's birthday. So it wasn't a dream of mine to get married right away.
But you decided, okay, we're going to beat the odds, and we are going to make this work. And it would appear that that's what you were doing. From the outside, you had a husband who was very successful. You had a family. Tell me about the success your husband had, and that success ended up basically undermining the marriage.
Well, that's right. It was. And part of it was because we were married young, and he had successes all throughout our marriage. But we had family surrounding us, but it was when the successes became too many, too much, too quick. And when we moved to Minnesota, it was a corporate move, and it was life change that was changing. That was where my husband was the only person to be made partner that year. This was Ernst & Ernst at the time, which is now Ernst & Young, and it was a CPA firm. He had passed the test the first time he ever took that test, which, excuse me, is rare. But, he had a lot of encouragement and support. He didn't have to worry about anything because I took care of the home, and I loved my husband, and he loved us and our family. But anyway, he ended up, when we moved to Minnesota, and he was the only one that was made partner, and we moved the week before Christmas, which is not a good time, and our boys were teenagers at that time, and our daughter was 6. So at any rate, he set out to prove his worth at that point. And he had tremendous success. He became involved with mergers and acquisitions, hostile takeovers, and when you have if you have that kind of career, it really does change you. And he would do meditation to relax, which you need to, but then toward the end, he started combining it with self-hypnosis. So he could just concentrate and not feel what was happening.
Yeah, you say in the book, The Value of a Homemaker, that he actually did it probably to escape the regrets that he had for his actions that he had to go through every day in his job.
Oh, yes. He was exhausted. He was exhausted from, when people, he did mergers and acquisitions, but he also would do the auditing for companies. So he could see the weaknesses and he could see the strengths. But when you're in mergers and acquisitions, you're going to use those strength to your strength to their advantage. But if you saw the weaknesses, you would expound on those weaknesses, and those companies would become vulnerable to a takeover. So that's one of the things that happens. And he also, when he was made partner, I mean, the fact that he was the only one that was made partner, but he did mergers and acquisitions for years. And then his good friend, who was the president of First Bank, had invested $500 million in junk bonds and lost it all. And we were supposed to move to New York, and we didn't, because Pete Ankeny and Daryl Knudsen called him one day when he was home from New York for our son's birthday, and we got a call saying that they wanted to talk to him about that $500 million junk bond failure, and it was, the big problems, and could he save First Bank? So he was tired of mergers and acquisitions. He set up a war room, brought in his key people, and then he saved the bank. But when he saved the bank, it also changed him, because they asked him if he would head First Bank. So he did, and he brought in Jack Gundhofer, and they changed the name from First Bank to U.S. Bank. So he was the top man of U.S. Bank with Jack Gundhofer.
And then through all of this process, you talk about the changes that you saw, the family saw in your husband, and it was almost this parallel. The more successful he became in business, the more the marriage suffered.
It did. It suffered because during the throes of all the successes, Ernst & Young had said they were going to cut back. So if there was a business trip, occasionally I would go, and it would be enjoyable. You meet the other wives, but then they started cutting back they said, we've got to cut back. So the wives were no longer to go on these trips, which was fine, because the boys were teenagers or getting older, and it was harder to have sitters. So that was fine with me, except that left very little time for Rick and I, between his travels, between his business meetings, and just he worked. He liked to be the first one in the office and the last one to leave. So he was very driven. So, but it changed him, because the successes, it became like it was never enough.
Well, and you talk in the book, and the book is The Value of a Homemaker. Our guest on the program is Patti Zona. PattiZona.com is the website. The book is available at Barnes & Noble, at Amazon, and information as well at our website. As you're talking about it, it's compared to an addiction, and you're saying it's basically as strong as alcohol or a drug addiction. You're addicted to money, you're addicted to power, and no matter how much you have, it's never enough.
And it's worse because you're encouraged. You're out there making all this money, and no one was saying, "Whoa, that's terrible." In fact, one of the partners' wives came up to me shortly after we were divorced, and she said, "Patti, Rick made millions for the bank." And it was like, that was okay. He made millions, so he could do whatever he wanted. And what happened to you and your family, that was immaterial. And I was shocked. In fact, I was so shocked, it was like unbelievable. It's like, how could you think that way? But a lot of people do. They feel like the money is more important, and how the money was, they don't even question that, or who was hurt in the process. So I was shocked, because here she was a woman, a female, a mother, but yet she had her husband that had, he didn't have the type of, he was in banking actually, but he didn't do mergers and acquisitions and hostile takeovers. That is what is very destructive.
Well, and you make the case there that basically when you're there, what the corporation does is remove emotion. Everything is done with the bottom line, the focus on the bottom line. That emotion is not there, and it's difficult to come back home at night and suddenly put emotion, which is needed, back into the family, back into the marriage.
And that's right. That's it exactly. I mean, even if he'd get a call at 3 in the morning from overseas or whatever, it would be, he had to be alert. It was like he could be totally exhausted, but he couldn't let people know that he was exhausted. It was like he was always in good top form.
Patti Zona, our guest on the program. The book is called The Value of a Homemaker. Eventually, and it's all detailed in the book, The Value of a Homemaker, available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Her website is pattizona.com. In the book, you get to the point where, okay, this has to end, and you confront him with a letter, with "I think we need to separate." Things really went downhill at that point, and you thought, okay, a divorce is going to end this, and to make we'll run out of time before we get to everything, but the battle was just basically beginning at that point. Divorce wasn't enough as he walked away from the marriage.
Right. And once I don't know if he kind of planned that in his head that, oh, because there were other women, there wasn't just, it was not only the money thing, but there were women in the backgrounds. And when they go on these trips, they would have women there to, dine with or whatever. And I didn't learn this until later, but it was he didn't have an incentive. He didn't have an incentive to. We became strangers because we were apart for so long that he no longer knew me. He just knew me, and at that point, I had a virus, and I could hardly talk, and I had a croupy cough. In fact, and it lasted for 6 months. So during this time, it was like time that I should be really strong. I couldn't. I couldn't be strong, and I thought, he doesn't care. And our last child was going off to college, and here it was like when I had a divorce and I had an empty nest, and it was just a very difficult time.
To show sort of the acrimony that went into the divorce, you talk in the book, The Value of a Homemaker, about your husband wanting stock options. And you were reluctant, but you did that. And he said, I'll take care of you for life. And that basically was just an opportunity for him to get more money for himself.
I didn't understand how stock options worked. And it was one of those times that when he came over, and he was so sweet. I should have I should have realized, but I did. I thought, well, I don't understand these stock options, and U.S. Bank has done some things that I'm not happy with. That probably go defunct, but it didn't. I mean, it's still a very big bank, and that's okay. But yeah, he just I gave him my stock options, and it was like nothing. Then it was like no matter what he did or had was never enough, and now he had that money, and he could change on a dime. But it's amazing. It's been years now, and I know he has regrets, and I see him, and I feel so bad. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for our family. And I feel angry that corporate America would come between our family. And he would say in court, he sacrificed his family for his career. You don't do that. And the courts shouldn't accommodate a wealthy man.
Well, and you tell some very chilling tales in the book, in the court situation. And he had money, he had power, he had high-priced attorneys. You were pretty much there by yourself battling this and getting very bruised along the way.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was Joan of Arc. And I thought, well, first time I went to court and I didn't have an attorney because the attorneys that I would interview would suddenly be too busy or have a conflict of interest when they learned about U.S. Bank, Ric Zona, and Ed Weiner. I shouldn't even mention his name. But at any rate, I'm sure they all have regrets, but not enough. Um, yes, I had to represent myself, and I thought the course would say, "Hey, stop! What are you doing to the mother of your children?" But they never did. And I began to think, I got to the point where I couldn't trust, but I couldn't respect the judges or the other attorneys because it was like this was just a big game.
And this game went on for about a decade, and it's all
Yes.
detailed in the book, The Value of a Homemaker. And you do such an excellent job in the book of asking the question and trying to put value on a homemaker. Here you were raising the children, managing the home, being supportive of your husband, who was extremely successful in business. And when it comes basically accounting time, that accounted for little or nothing.
That's right. Actually, it accounted for nothing because if I would have been a teacher, if I would have been a secretary, if I would have been somebody that worked in an office, at least I would have had some support, some guidance somewhere. But because I was a homemaker and I didn't have any family here, and my last child was going off to college, my boys were here, were kind, trying to survive their life. And during this time when we were first divorced, Rick was an absentee parent. I mean, he just wasn't there. The boys could be struggling, I could be struggling. He didn't care. He just did not want to it's like he did his part. But I mean, like I said, I know now he has regrets. And that's what I feel bad for him because it's very difficult for a man or anybody, especially if you're in a high position, to admit that you've made a mistake or that you were wrong or that you did something that wasn't quite honorable. You don't want to go there for a lot of reason. And I was just reading up on that thing. And but you know what? We all make mistakes. But I feel like we have to learn. And if we don't admit that we made that mistake, then we're always trying to find out how or why.
Well, the nice thing about the book, and I know that's one of the reasons that you wrote the book, is you're able to help other people. By your mistakes, they may possibly be able to prevent making those same mistakes. Or if they've made those mistakes and they're now conflicted, you can give them some answers, guide them in the right direction. The book is The Value of a Homemaker. Our guest on the program is Patti Zona, Pattizona. PattiZona.com is the website. The book's available at Amazon.com all across the country. A minute or so left in the program, and you said something in there that so often people are vulnerable, and they find out later, the wrong people. You talk about the people I trusted to protect me had their own agenda that they would profit themselves. Is it difficult vulnerable, I guess is probably the right word, when you're going through that, you might not make decisions you normally would make, or you don't think them through, and you allow yourself maybe to be victimized even more?
Well, these were all professional people that I trusted and that I should have been able to trust. So, and I didn't have any family here. When you're going constantly to court, it really drains you. You're kind of living in a state of shock, and you're actually kind of looking for someone to, hey, really be honest and true and care and say, I'll help you. It's like when Merrill Lynch took the sale of my house, he took the sale of my house money and invested it without the other money and lost it. Well, there was no recourse for me because I was a single person. I was not married. I didn't have any family here. There was nothing I could do. I mean, believe me, I tried. But yes, it was all the professional people that I had. Well, two attorneys that wanted to buy my house, but they couldn't afford it, and they used their background as a means to try and extort and commit fraud with me at a time when Rick is still taking me to court. There were things that happened that should have never, and these people were professional people.
And this marriage broke up. The divorce was after, 28 years of marriage? I think I neglected to mention that. This was a long relationship with the children. Just about out of time. One final question. You said that you started writing to help you understand. Where are you now? Did it help you understand? And it certainly sounds like you're able to go back and sort of piece those things together and understand, okay, that happened, but here I am today and I'm stronger.
I'm I'm stronger. I pretty much know myself, and because of my experiences, they haven't gone away because they've never been addressed, and they don't have to be addressed. So I'm kind of want to do another book. It's in the works, and will be about my buying my little cottage house, my first house I ever bought. But it turned out a lot of problems with non-disclosure and a conflict of interest with other people. But also, I want to, if write this book, I want to write about statute of limitations, because that doesn't help anybody except the person that's caused these problems. There's so many things wrong with corporate America, the government, you name it, the airplanes. I mean, we've got to start making better decisions.
Well, the book is an eye-opener. Once again, it's called The Value of a Homemaker, a Memoir. Our guest in the program is Patti Zona, P-A-T-T-I, Zona, Z-O-N-A. That's important because her website is pattizona.com. The book's available at Amazon all across the country. Patti, we'll stay in touch when you get the new book out. Let us know. We'd love to have you back on the program. And thank you for sharing with us on the program today.
Rick, thank you. This was, it was very interesting. I know I look funny, so I don't always look like this.
You don't look funny, and if you're watching, go to our YouTube channel, and you'll see that, and you look very nice. So thank you very much for joining us on the program. Thanks, everybody. You're listening to This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.
You're listening to This Week in America with Ric Bratton. More after this.